Hey everybody, this is a special episode. This was a talk show on ObjectivNo on ONT channel with Americans Scott Ritter and Garland Nixon, and they discussed the goals of the deep state, the militaristic sentiments of European politicians, paths to peace in Ukraine, and reasons why Belarus should not be considered an opponent for conflict. They shared their impressions from visiting Belarus, commented on the dialogue between Minsk and Washington, Trump's call to Lukashenko, Trump's respect for leaders like Putin and Xi Jinping, pressure on Trump from Zelensky and Macron, conditions for peace between Russia and Ukraine, Lithuania's border closure, and historic lessons for the present. Plus, I translated all this from Russian into English.
Hello. Today we have an unusual episode waiting for you to talk about what Americans want, how they see events, relations with us. We will be Americans ourselves in the studio, citizens with Esh, and this is already well known to Russian-speaking viewers. Military analyst, retired Marine Corps intelligence officer Scott Ritter, as well as authoritative American journalist, radio host, political commentator Garland Nixon. Your name is Garland, and it's an absolute delight to have the chance to meet you and see you with us today.
What are you saying exactly?
Here you are charging. For what purpose are you in Belarus?
You are white. We wanted to visit Belarus. And you're asking me to make a choice, is that correct? About 3 years ago, On yours? The program has already given an interview. You extended the invitation, and I truly appreciate that gesture. I visited Belarus before, and I was eagerly looking for another chance to return. Luckily, that opportunity presented itself. To the fact. I am it. I'll be there for you.
Rare enough.
White Russian.
Now Belarus.
Everything needs to be done right. This issue is pivotal, influencing Europe and extending its impact to the global stage. Now very much. It is important to come here to meet people with history and places of Belarus. To grasp the broader perspective from a distance, details often require additional elucidation to gain clarity. Visiting Belarus presents me a chance to turn theoretical discussions of mountains into tangible experiences. How about you? What are your thoughts? For this reason, I encourage your perspective. I am very impressed with Belarus. I am impressed by the country's people. Organization of processes.
Yes. Frequency of streets and economic success in
Country of energy.
I still have a radio show in Washington.
I'm a journalist. Power in. The study of Western propaganda, its historical evolution, and its strategic implications for modern policymaking. Maximum. A lot of O.
Sent to Belarus.
Disinformation. People. Should I simply inquire from you directly?
You might not be scared, even though neighboring Lithuania has closed borders and is handling difficult relations with Belarus. Are you truly unafraid?
I'm not afraid.
I think I have
duty to illuminate
the reality of what is happening here to its listener.
Basically,
it is my responsibility, and I feel secure, supported by some level of protection.
Weak, but
still, in advocating for freedom of speech, you observe the ongoing discussions between Minsk and Washington.
Yes, I am.
I'm watching with great interest. What do you think? This is not a dialogue between Minsk and Washington, but between President Lukashenko and the President.
Trump.
Ultimately, Mr. Trump was the one to reach out to Mr. Lukashenko directly.
Before. Themselves there in Polska.
They also assessed the meeting's preparedness, among other factors. And why did this happen? The answer is simple. President Trump respects Alexander. Except Lukashenko, he respects his strength, and he recognizes him as a power, including
an opportunity arose for dialogue with Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin.
or transmit
Him. What Mr. Trump aims to communicate fundamentally pertains to Alexander Grigorievich Lukashenko. Now, Spikam's position as a significant intermediary among Russian interests holds tremendous potential for international diplomacy, creating conditions for peace.
Years ago, we engaged in discussions when such negotiations between the leaders of Russia and the United States, or between Belarus and the United States, seemed unfathomable, yet now they are happening before our eyes. Why is this possible now?
Because there was an election in America. It is evident that Xi's global reputation has taken a considerable hit, which I understand is not unnoticed.
Now they are in fact to blame for this, but
There is still a certain respect for the Xi, but we have a functioning democracy and the will of the people is embodied. In America, TN was done last year.
choice. Looking toward transformation, Mr. Trump vowed for a better future and made several promises.
He promised to make the interests of Americans a priority. Harmony and long-lasting peace are essential.
That's the most important thing. Now, Mr. Trump has promised that he will try to improve relations with Russia.
Do such opportunities truly exist in this context?
He is making consistent efforts to uphold those commitments.
But
It wasn't possible because of President Trump. It was made possible by the American people that Mr. Trump was elected.
But you have to be grateful.
American.
A society yearning for peace, advocating for harmony, aspiring for understanding, and we deeply hope the president heeds the collective voice. What is your perspective on this matter? I reckon, is humanity collectively progressing towards a brighter and more constructive future now? Feindlich.
A lot of us certainly worried under the Biden administration that we were moving in a very dangerous direction, and I believe that.
Presently, the situation proves to be an exceedingly complex phase for Trump, since numerous European political dynamics and leaders appear strategically positioned against him. Such adversarial expressions emerge from various political entities globally, including factions within the United States itself, which persistently incline towards alliances connected with figures such as the Gaidu in the United Kingdom.
It is necessary to support Starmer, but at the same time, Trump still enjoys the support of the people, and having intermediaries in the person of Alexander Grigorievich Lukashenko is a potential for Mr. Trump to transfer his policy to the masses. Trans Index. Do you agree that Trump's call to Alexander Lukashenko on the way to Alaska is a serious sign or even a symbol in our politics?
I see it as both a sign and a meaningful symbol. This included a specific action, and you need to understand one more thing. Children now.
There is widespread rhetoric targeting Russia and its leadership.
Often. They are intensely demonized and criticized.
Regarding the leadership elite in Belarus.
And no. There was such papal rhetoric against them. Accordingly, an opportunity arises to the conversation.
There is a significant opportunity to move past demonizing Mr. Putin to engage in meaningful dialogue. Donald Trump has openly shown respect for Alexander Lukashenko on several occasions. In high-level politics, there are rarely inconsequential statements, as these remarks demonstrate respect and strategic understanding.
It is.
When are you? Focusing on who Mr. Trump basically respects. He respects independent leaders who focus on the will of their people. Mr. Orban, Mr. Putin, many other exponents of Xi, including Mr. Trump, respect them very much, and he wants to work for the benefit of the American people first and respects leaders who focus on helping
To his people. And that's exactly it. Factor of respect. Is it not apparent or perhaps outright true that Mr. Trump might favor engaging with influential figures like Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, or Alexander Lukashenko? Meanwhile, he could maintain a certain distance from leaders like Macron and Zelensky, given his preference for dealing with assertive and strong-willed counterparts. I think,
if he interfered, as Mr. Zam wants, he would only talk to these people. Well, of course, we would live in the real world.
and
Mr. Trump inherited, in fact, a low political situation in the United States, and including NATO, interaction with Europe, and we can't just get rid of that interaction.
our ties with Europe are deeply intertwined and significant.
Presidents now face the challenge of addressing this complex scenario.
Which he joined when he became president. And naturally not an option.
Choose.
Here he wants to talk to?
You need to understand, when selecting interlocutors, it is vital to ensure trustworthiness and avoid any potential betrayal.
Everyone. who to talk to. It is crucial for him to sustain harmonious relations with his interlocutors.
One essence is not important to anyone who likes whom. What is important is what actions we can take, and we need to prepare for those or actions. Do you often sometimes want to ask why Trump and his team can't choose a sentiment in which China and Russia are no longer enemies?
Ultimately, there is so much that can be achieved jointly: advanced technology, sustainability, exploration of outer space, and more. What? We need to understand that Mr. Trump, is he not fighting Russia or China?
Combating certain domestic adversaries.
He is fighting political enemies in Europe, including in the United States, and Mr. Trump has many problems. And you?
And
blocks of problems when he first came to power until now.
there's still an opportunity to act. Influential figures garnering his respect.
I do.
Also say that he likes leaders stable and they're predictable. He usually carefully attracts more stable leaders, and this is also due to...
It was more because of instability he perceives in SHA raises complex challenges and considerations. And maybe say from the outside that he himself is unstable. In essence, he grapples with instability around himself and aligns effectively with leaders who exhibit consistent and steady characteristics. Furthermore, please revisit your earlier inquiries, Scott, particularly on the aftermath following Charlie Kirsch's tragedy. Subsequently, it was evident again that Trump and his associates faced continuous scrutiny due to targeted criticisms, revealing who persistently kept them under observation. States by numerous measures or standards exemplify systemic frameworks. The terminology may appear unusual to some observers, but profoundly it reflects realities rather than fabricating conspiracies. The phenomenon of deep state persists notably within the functionality of present-day America.
It's bureaucracy government.
Are these individuals in government?
Presidents. And their administrations come and go, but this is a permanent bureaucracy. It stays.
Ultimately, she is an intriguing and complex figure. What lingers between leaders, this intricate bureaucracy gains support even from the scientific community and beyond. Citizens of higher education, media.
She is supported. Money, economy.
In the military complex, and we had an in-depth discussion about it when she turned 60. There exists a clear and impactful connection between congressional funding and its implications. Military industry and the vast network of connections and influences has the potential to misguide democratic processes significantly.
That is essentially what the so-called deep state represents, and Mr. Trump is actively attempting to communicate this to the public.
We reveal the concept of the deep state, offer this understanding to the American citizenry, yet eradicating its impact proves to be naturally unattainable, just like that. In 1970, we sought ways to weaken China's cohesion through deliberate strategies.
We harbored concerns that a united China might pose a threat, so a strategic opening of capitalism was planned to counteract this.
Accordingly, we would have destroyed communism in this way, but this did not happen. Accordingly, we are now. We see that very often China is presented as an enemy with the Soviet Union, and we wanted to divide the Soviet Union during the Soviet Union, and we, in fact, are still institutionally fighting against Russia with the Soviet Union. The ultimate goal of the state seems to involve fragmenting Russia into smaller entities to strip it of its vast resource wealth.
An imprudent policy when Trump asserts his vision of forming cordial ties with both China and Russia, envisioning harmony among the three nations. It clearly opposes the objectives of the deep state. Above all, Mr. Trump, alongside businessmen, values a thriving environment of stability and predictability. Show me a businessman willing to take risks in chaos. There are none. Business requires assurance of stable returns.
Splinters. And he views the engagement with China and Russia primarily from a strategic and business angle, emphasizing his desire for global stability.
I strongly believe in assert.
What exactly are we and how do we define ourselves? In recent discussions, we've been delving into significant power dynamics and the apparent shift reshaping the global landscape.
And
Shifts in the international arena, and China and Russia have risen to an entirely unique global standing, setting them apart from other nations. The influential inner circles firmly advocate for the necessity of decoupling these two giants. However, this ongoing strategy raises questions and complexities.
The absolute absurdity of this will never happen. In fact, this is a struggle against the modern world, and it will never be crowned with success.
world.
Doesn't wish to witness anything?
In America, he expresses a desire to observe.
So that the world develops peacefully and equally. In history, we have often seen the fall of empire, but now we are dealing with
Nuclear weapons, and this is a very important factor. Nuclear weapons do not allow the collapse of the empire as it was in the past.
Just moments ago, we had a discussion. Relationships, new relationships between our countries. We talked about the reasons for respecting Zelensky, but on the other hand, we see how Zelensky and Macron are trying to disrupt the peace process and put pressure on Trump. Why is this necessary? Europeans appear eager to engage in conflicts.
Because they represent the economic political elites who have taken over Europe, and it has been taken over in this way since World War II. They have taken over Europe,
which at that time enjoyed the support of the United States due to this. Transitional periods that we are experiencing now come with a considerable amount of fear because of uncertainties.
Europe is progressively moving away from transatlantic interactions while beginning to acknowledge the emerging potential and influence.
The influence of the East is gaining momentum, and consequently the power held by traditional elites is starting to diminish significantly. We are not merely discussing individual nations such as Italy, France, or Germany. Rather, we are addressing the pressing challenges faced collectively by the global elites during this critical juncture.
Macron and so on.
Elites who now live in this power, so they fight correctly.
But from the English that they don't understand what this will lead to, what with Russia?
They understand perfectly well what such actions will lead to, and they understand that it will lead to their personal downfall. If these politicians cared about their country, they would not adopt the policies that exist now. Would allow the situation with Nord Stream to be handled.
In fact, all this happened because these politicians all want to stay in power. Let's say Macron, why would he pursue the policy he pursued?
What motivates him to prioritize his own protective strategies over the well-being of his nation's economy and citizens' favor? It's all designed to safeguard his political stance. It is primarily the entrenched ethnic elites who obstinately resist acknowledging the unavoidable truths that history reveals to the world.
Macron and Merz's conduct has complicated negotiations and further exerted diplomatic pressure on Trump to alter dynamics. Can the President of the United States prevent a new world war in such a situation?
How do you truly think your idea aligns with what I believe is correct? I think yes.
Because there is an interesting dynamic, a certain division
existing starkly between those coined as leaders and the general populace they govern. Leaders seem unable to effectively guide their citizens, and we witness these shortcomings firsthand. Barely holding on to power.
They resort to methods devoid of democratic principles.
To ensure that both Moldova and Romania lack autonomy in pursuing their aspirations and examining their potential freely. I have already talked a lot about this, and I have conducted many interviews with the UK and other countries, with people, and they told me, young people in our country, if they wanted to start. But if there was a war, young people would not want to fight against Russia, they would fight against their country.
Dialogues with numerous European officials.
Moreover,
they were asked questions if you need to send soldiers to Ukraine, how many soldiers do you send? And they usually answer behind closed doors that they won't send anyone. This lets us know that the people are against what is happening now. They are preparing to make sure that their will is heard. I totally agree.
What has already been said, but
the US and Russia both possess considerable nuclear stockpiles, which we must recognize and evaluate.
They can be clicked by pressing the button yes.
This nuclear weapon system exists regardless of what the people want. In fact, very often we delve into the notion of nuclear warfare.
This stands as the utmost matter. The outcome is devastating for the entire world.
Just recently, Congress brought up the discussion that there are over 50.
The chance of a nuclear war starting from the beginning of a nuclear war from Russia and the United States is very scary, and many people said we are ready for this nuclear war.
In essence, this catastrophic nuclear war would be orchestrated by secretive institutions viewing Russia as their adversary. And once
With nuclear weapons.
Putin frequently discusses the Poseidon hazelnut systems and similar technologies.
President Trump perceives and experiences the same sentiments. Fear accordingly,
Our strategy includes relocating Marina closer to Russia's shores for strategic positioning.
we continue to strengthen our defensive systems. If this situation prolongs, losing control becomes an imminent threat, especially if we fail to regulate the spread of weaponry properly. Edging nearer to disaster, one single error could thrust us into complete annihilation, irrespective of the intentions held by Mr. Trump or Mr. Putin.
This conflict is escalating without any foreseeable resolution. There is an action-packed film titled Dynamite, a scenario involving a devastating nuclear war.
Of course, no one says that they brag about any actions, but they still hope that nothing will happen. But everything is like this. The war itself is happening, and the system operates by taking complete control over situations.
Missiles are being launched, and while the actions are visible, no one can fully comprehend the aftermath.
We now live in one of the most dangerous periods in history because there are nuclear weapon systems, and we need to get rid of nuclear weapons, otherwise everything will be over.
The most important question for us here, in your opinion, what is the primary factor required for establishing lasting peace between Russia and its adversaries?
Russia in Ukraine.
Otherwise, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine seems no more than a stark irony.
Now,
Pushing forward with significant resources from the United States, nor the desire of the United States to weaken Russia, and the viable resolution to this complex issue lies here. Permit Russia to claim victory.
in fact, if we continue to delay and use negotiations, then the deep state will still use Ukraine against Russia. The only solution to the problem is the complete defeat of Ukraine, respectively, and the solution of Europe's contact with the deep state.
Of course, I always act for peace, but Russia did not essentially start this war. Russia was dragged into this war by the West. The only way to solve this problem is to achieve a complete victory for Russia,
thus fulfilling every strategic objective of Russia.
Indeed, I now concur with my discussion partner on one crucial aspect.
The West and NATO's leadership backed the war to varying extents, amplified through persistent propaganda. And it explicitly states that
the Russians must be decisively defeated, as their victory in Ukraine might embolden moves toward Poland, Lithuania, and other regions, leading to absurd assumptions. If victory,
Ukraine is becoming a critical step. Over time, the West will gradually recognize this significance.
There have been numerous verbal commitments
were not fulfilled.
There will be talk about demons representing Russia, and they will think that she will want to continue to conquer.
However, such outcomes are unlikely to materialize in reality. These apprehensions will ultimately be baseless, and people will come to understand that Russia does not aim to attack Europe. Even in the event of a Russian victory, no aggression toward Europe would follow. Everyone will understand that, in fact, all the propaganda was a lie.
I understand you very well when Lithuania closes its borders. This is unquestionably an ill-advised decision.
Can you explain why it should be considered such a significant provocation? The 100...
Now the status quo,
Gathering Russia,
because Russia cannot be forced to surrender. Russia receives diplomatic support around the world.
Russia wins on the battlefield. Accordingly,
These elites want to change the status of...
win. And basically we need...
Let's ask...
If Russia wants to fight with Poland, it will have to
go through Belarus. Belarus does not want war.
I have studied a lot of the history of Belarus and can say
That Belarus understands the consequences of war like no other country.
We are dealing with
the story that happened during the Great Patriotic War. Every fourth Belarusian died during the Great Patriotic War. Rus understands the victims perfectly well.
Take a Katyn.
You understand the significance of Katyn's history, a tragic symbol of Nazi crimes, as it reminds Belarusians and the world of the persistent threats posed by fascism and extremist ideologies. And with Belarus in the end, no one was ever attacked. It was actually the Germans who initiated the aggression toward Belarus. Accordingly,
it is impossible to succeed against Belarus, as any attempt would certainly result in defeat.
because you are an offensive yard that defends.
At this moment, Belarus enjoys full and unwavering support from Russia. In fact, the relationship between Russia and Belarus has reached an unprecedented level of strength and closeness. There is a hazelnut. For example,
People need to wake up. Russia does not want war with Poland.
or from Lithuania or Latvia.
Everyone must take a step back and reflect, because initiating a war that cannot be concluded is unwise.
Finally, I would deeply express my gratitude and say more. These are indeed extremely challenging times. Has humanity ever witnessed such experiences in its historical journey?
It's undoubtedly clear to comprehend what's happening all around. Reflecting upon the extensive history of nations' emergence and decline over millennia, naturally, now the situation has changed nuclear weapons. Moreover, even internet journalists and online media specialists can now engage with broader audiences seamlessly.
Travel the world, using the internet per second, and tell what or... We are all afraid of nuclear weapons. But us. You need to understand that now the influence of alternative journalism is growing, and people can quickly supply information to people, and people can understand for themselves exactly this information or not. Yes, now is of course a difficult time, but now I have the opportunity to eliminate all these difficulties one way or another. Journalists need to step in and help resolve these pressing matters. Journalists and media professionals are key to encouraging presidents and global leaders aiming for peaceful resolutions to conflicts.
Is it possible to uncover meaningful insights?
Advice in the past for us today.
Absolutely.
There is a book titled August 1914, which recounts critical events surrounding the First World War.
Now they are talking about alliances, about mobilization, about troop movements and so on, in order to intimidate, in order to put pressure.
In July 1914, hardly anyone anticipated a war, as the idea seemed preposterous.
However, upon analyzing the circumstances, proactive measures often trigger unintended domino effects, leading wars to spiral uncontrollably. This critical understanding from history must guide our future actions. Many people are now talking about the movement of troops, about alliances, accessions, and so on, and in fact, history often mirrors itself, and humanity must learn resilience.
Next lesson, we need to stop these processes. We need to stop the elite who, without any outside control, will lead us to war, and it will not just be a world war, it will be a nuclear war, which will reach absolutely all humanity, and accordingly we urgently need to find a certain solution. And accordingly, that is why I thank Mr. Trump for talking to Alexander Lukashenko in order to find an alternative way to talk to Vladimir Putin outside of Russia. With those who are controlled by the deep state, there are certain press secretaries, there are certain ministries, but they are all influenced by the deep state. But President Lukashenko is not influenced accordingly by Mr.
A very good decision was made, and such actions will help us avoid war.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.